It's 4 o'clock on a Tuesday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour. Yeah, baby. Good job on the live audio post, if I do say so myself. Hello, everybody. How are you guys? Good to see you again. Welcome back to the Quarantini Happy Hour. I want to continue today to talk about New Year's resolutions. Show turned out pretty good yesterday. I was pretty happy and very happy with a lot of feedback that I got from people. So thank you for the kind words, and glad you guys enjoyed it, and mostly glad that the research I did before the show actually paid off. So let's see. Stuart McClellan says, thanks for hanging with us. Oh, it's my pleasure. Always my pleasure. You know, it's funny. It's ironic that several weeks ago, probably 3 weeks ago, I was thinking, well, you know, the vaccine is on its way and things are going to start slowing down as far as the virus goes, and maybe the lockdowns will calm down. And it's only gotten worse at the moment. Sadly, a lot of cities are locking back down to varying degrees, more lockdown than less, I would say, in more cities than not. Because I was wondering, you know, how much longer should we keep doing the Quarantini happy hours if we're not going to be locked down and we don't need to hang out as much because we've got human contact with other people in the outside world. But it looks like for the moment we're going to be hanging out for a while longer. Anyway, let's see. What else do I want to talk about today? Oh, at some point I want to talk about Stephen Pressfield's book, Turning Pro. Part of the research I did for yesterday's show came from this book, which I always say, read War of Art first, then do the work, and then finally the third one in the series, which is Turning Pro. Let me say hello to everybody in the chat room. We've got John, Stu, Simon, Andre, Cass, Kip, El Raso, Buffalo Bob, Stewart, Giovanni, Greg Carroza. You missed yesterday. See, if you hadn't told us, we wouldn't know. I mean, we missed you. We really did. Glenn Letts, Christoph, Dean Turner, Pluit Music. Won't be human contact for 6 to 9 more months. Wow. Jan Weilage, Alex Dillon, Crash Gates, Keith LeBrant, how are you? Martin Gravel, Rosanna Angela, David Horsley, Darren Fletcher, Dan Weber, Carrie Harchin, Jesse Peck, Ewart Williams. Anyway, yeah, you know, I mean, how much longer is this thing gonna go on? And while we're pondering that, if you're not a subscriber to the channel, because all the videos I watch about how to build a great YouTube site say, or channel, I'll say you should tell people right up front to subscribe to your channel if they're not a subscriber yet, which is true, and give us a like. It's free. So there you go. Hello, Pierre. How are you? Pierre, Kiana, Howingolf, Jim Stamper, Martin Frog. So, yeah, you know, I honestly was a little worried going into yesterday's regular Taxi TV doing a thing on New Year's resolutions, figuring, you know, who am I to tell people what their resolutions should be? Who made me the Pope of resolutions? I guess I was self-appointed in that capacity. And as I was doing it, I'm thinking, wow, you know, the best thing about Taxi TV for me personally is that I'm always learning stuff, because as I research to pass information along to you guys, I learn stuff as well. So I'm really happy that it was received well and that people got something out of it. I'm happy that I got some ideas for my own life out of it. So I'm curious to see, because I didn't get as much time to get what you guys are going to do, what your resolutions are. So if anybody wants to spit out some resolutions that you've made, I'd love to hear them. Oh gosh, who did I see? I just saw somebody, and what happens in Quarantini? Basically, Rosanna, it's a hangout that we started when the lockdowns first started happening in late March, maybe early April. We were doing it 4 days a week. Regular Taxi TV happens on Monday, and that's a 90-minute show with some structure. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays, we were doing these informal hangs, and we call them Quarantinis because a lot of people tend to have a frothy libation, as we like to say, during the regular Taxi TV episode. So we thought we'd do a little happy hour, which is just a place for musicians and like-minded people to hang out and talk about whatever we want to talk about. Not a whole lot of structure. There's great discussion. A lot of friendships have been made. And we weave in some education every now and then. Sometimes we listen to music. Sometimes we talk about engineering or production or instrumental cue construction or songwriting, all that stuff. So there you go. Who did I just see something about? Keith LeBrand says, every time somebody says music, you take a shot. There you go. Excuse me. So... was it Il Raso or Giovanni? Somebody I just saw in the comments on yesterday's video. Hello, Edmund, said that whoever it was said he woke up and was going to, start his New Year resolution was to just say goodbye to social media, which is one of the things I suggested yesterday. And he said then he got a call from his ex-wife and spent 2 hours on the phone with his ex-wife. So there's a fun way to start your day, right? I'm assuming you still get along with your ex-wife or you wouldn't have spent 2 hours on the phone. So Paul Gavin says, I'm writing 3 percussion albums, 1 Middle Eastern, 1 African, and 1 percussion for advertising to submit to the libraries, and submitting at least 1 track to all Taxi percussion listings. There you go. That sounds like a good one. Hello, Darren Moss. How are you? The priority list on the wall thing seems to be the best thing for me right now, says Kip Johnson. It was Giovanni that said he was talking to his ex-wife. Well, I hope that went well. I got a really disturbing text from my eldest daughter, who's about 39 years old. I was married many years ago, like 35 years ago. I was married to my first wife, and at some point we lived in New Jersey, where all 3 of her other sisters lived, a reasonably decent-sized extended family, and one of my now ex-sister-in-laws had a husband, and the husband had a sister, who I was fairly friendly with. I knew her well, would see her at family gatherings, weddings, bar mitzvahs, Thanksgiving dinners, what have you, barbecues. Found out this morning that she was murdered yesterday, if you can believe that. That was kind of stunning news. Turns out it was her son that did it. So that was, I wasn't like really close to her, but she was a nice person, and I'm sorry that she lost her life and sorry that it was her son. And that was just strange news. It's been kind of haunting me all day. I mean, what a horrible way to go at the hands of one of your own children. Anyway, so there was my cheery news. Thanks, Glenn. I hate to sound callous. I don't mean this to sound callous, but I'm not feeling a lot of loss because I wasn't that close to her. I knew her well. I mean, knew her fairly well, but we weren't close. More than anything, I'm disturbed for the other family members that she left behind that she was obviously very close with. Anyway, so yeah, that's just something that popped into my life that I didn't see coming, and I feel badly for the family members that are left behind, and apparently there were issues. So anyway, so thanks for letting me share that. I've got to say, it's just, I'm more shocked than, I guess I'm saddened and shocked, but not like mourning a loss. I guess maybe I should be for her. Anyway. Let's see. What else did I want to talk about? Oh, so yeah, New Year's resolution stuff. Any other resolutions that you guys have figured that you're going to do? No X jokes from me today. We're all humans, says Stuart. Well, I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to leave my ex-wife out of this. It's been a long, long time. Play more piano, says Pierre. I have a feeling you've probably play piano quite a bit already. Stuart says, resolutions, yesterday's Taxi TV Live on repeat, or a slideshow of my notes. Great. Small tasks often. Yeah, I like the whole concept of doing small tasks. That's, if you go for the big, hairy, audacious goals, a lot of books, a lot of, life coach type people recommend the big, hairy, audacious goals, which I guess is great, but you have to, do the slicing or chunking, taking it a little bit at a time to get there. You can't just make a broad generalization. Say, I'm going to be the world's greatest producer. You got to find a way to get there. Keith LeBrant, New Year. I definitely want to write more if possible and continue to not see my ex. I didn't know you had an ex, Keith, and I thought I knew you pretty well. Well, there's one more thing we've got in common. Marion Laird, music is hand and arm therapy. Richard Carr, becoming one with my DAW. That I'm not going to touch that one either. It's a family show. Astronaut. Speaking of which, remember years ago I had a young lady on the show named Astronautica. She was a DJ from here in LA and a producer. I can't remember what kind of music. It was trippy music, and she was quite talented. She just popped into my head for the first time like 2 weeks ago, and I Googled her to see what she's up to. Reread Steve Barden's book. That's a good bet. And Robin Fredericks again. Wow. Glenn Lett, short-term goal. Write down the changes to make to my taxi submissions. Good one. Astronautica. Yep. Dan Weber says, yes, I remember her. Peter Rahill, yes. Darren Fletcher, saw that show. Wow, some of you guys have been around for a long time. Terrell Beckless, hello, welcome to the show. Yep, she was good. And she was doing all the right stuff, she was getting out there and working clubs and networking herself really well. From what I learned the other day, I knew she was engaged when she was on the show. I think she married the guy that she was engaged to at the time, which was, 3-4 years ago, maybe more. I did see a picture of her with her now husband. I believe he's like a lawyer or something. Reading Steve's book and Michael Jackson, Inc. Wow, I haven't read that. David Horsley, committed to writing and completing music faster than I have been. That's a good one. The faster you get it done, the more you make, the more you learn. The more mistakes you'll make along the way, but every one of those is a stepping stone. I know it's cliche to say that, but I absolutely believe it. Marion's going to buy a large external hard drive so I can store virtual instruments. Hard drives have gotten so incredibly cheap. I can't believe it. I think I'm sitting here looking at a 2 terabyte drive that I bought, I don't know, maybe a year ago. And the thing is not much bigger. Well, here, I will show you. I bought this about a year ago, and I want to say I paid like $63 for it. I don't even know who makes it, but I think it was like a Seagate or something. Yeah, it's a Seagate 2 terabyte drive. I think it was $63 on Amazon. It's just ridiculous how cheap storage has gotten. I mean, it's at the point now where you could like back up your entire computer to one of those drives and just shove it in a drawer forever. And, when you fill it up, just buy another one, because they keep getting cheaper all the time, which is a good thing. Wow, Kip Johnson got an 8 terabyte RAID 0 drive from my samples. You must have a lot of samples. Stu got a Western Digital 5 terabyte drive for $109. It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, do you remember when we all first started buying computers and they had like, 64K RAM? Yeah, SSDs. That's something you catch on a date. No, no, an SSD solid state drives. They are awesome. My last two laptops have had them. What a difference it makes when you fire them up. The fact that you can like boot up a program like Logic and it's open in like less than a minute, way less than a minute. I'm reading Mixing with My Mind. Got a 1 terabyte for 45 euros. My first K Pro had 10 megs. Wow. Yeah, it's just crazy. One of the things, I've got a question for you guys, a tech question on gear. As many or most of you know, I got Logic Pro before the Road Rally, and that is, one of my resolutions for this year is to actually use it and create stuff just for fun, just because I think it'll make me better at speaking with you guys if I'm more familiar with it. What is the D in my name for? If I told you, I'd have to kill you. I don't like my middle name, so I rarely use it. How did you know there was a D? Did I hold something up? Oh, yeah, because it said MDL 2020 on it. I had a Commodore 64 many, many years ago. I found it in a garbage dumpster and hooked it up to a black and white 13-inch TV set and got the thing to work. Boy. Anyway, so here's what I don't know. If I'm using Logic Pro and I'm going to be running it on my laptop, I forget. I just got this laptop a few months ago. Let me look about this Mac. It's MacBook Pro, 18-inch. 2.3 gigahertz, 8-core Intel Core i9, 32 gigs of RAM, upgraded graphics card. So, should I load all my sample libraries and stuff rather than putting it on my laptop? Should I have it on an external drive? Is there a latency issue? Yeah, that's it, Darren. Michael Dude Laskow. Let's go with that because I like Dude better than my actual middle name. Do you know I don't know the proper spelling for my middle name? I had to fill something out recently. I can't remember, for a driver's license, whatever. And they said, well, what's your middle name? And I told them, they said, spell it. And I couldn't remember if it ended in an IN or an EN. Anyway, let's see. Better to have them on an external. Okay. Plenty of power on my Mac. Yep, always on an external drive. Okay, good to know. Wow. Everybody's saying external. Wow. We've got it. Shouldn't have any latency problems with my setup. People are guessing my middle name. I love it. Yeah, don't clutter my internal drive. All right. So, yeah, we do have a consensus. Thank you for that. Good to know. It's funny. I almost got Rosanna said I regret getting the MacBook Air. My wife and daughters all have MacBook Airs, but they don't use them to the extent that I do. Basically, they just go online with them and type the occasional Word doc. But I thought about getting a beefy MacBook Air just because, I used to travel a lot. Someday I may travel a lot again. And the MacBook Pro in a backpack is fairly heavy. So I thought about getting it just because it's lighter. And then, sorry, I love people guessing my middle name. And I'd heard that MacBook Airs, if you buy them with enough memory, are pretty capable. You're right. Layla was recorded at Criteria. Didn't I tell you guys that story? Well, gee, then it's story time. I think it was maybe my first day or second day at Criteria. And Steve Gursky was the guy one step up the ladder for me. I was the bottom rung of the ladder, the youngest person on the staff, and a guy named Steve Gursky was kind of in charge of making sure I didn't get in any trouble. So back then, recording consoles weren't quite as we know them today. This was, like post Beatles Abbey Road with the old consoles that barely had faders. They had big knobs, and then they kind of moved into those British paint-on faders. So the recording console in Studio A at Criteria, which I believe like Eat a Peach by the Allman Brothers was done on that. A lot of really famous records were done in that room on that console. And Gursky brings me a bottle of lemon oil about the size of a cough medicine bottle, and some Q-tips with like the long lab Q-tips with the wooden sticks on them. And he says, okay, your job is to put one drop of lemon oil on the Q-tip. Don't do it over the console in case you spill. As a matter of fact, he gave me like paper towels on the producer's desk. So one drop, just one drop only. And you had to sit there. I'm looking for a prop. And so the console was made out of black anodized aluminum, and it was all one piece. It didn't have channel strips that you could lift out and replace and move over and stuff like that. It was just one, like 5 foot wide, excuse me, 5 foot wide piece of like 1/8 inch anodized aluminum. And what you had to do was take the Q-tip that had one drop of lemon oil on it and do this to the entire console and clean off the entire surface of that console without getting any lemon oil, like in any of the holes where the knobs or switches were, or any of the fader slots. And so I remember thinking, hey, man, I'll do whatever it takes. As long as I can work here, I'm down. And he brought in a reel of 2-inch tape and put it on the machine and set it on loop. It was the early days of auto locators, and rather than having LED readouts, they actually had, this one had Nixie, I think they were called Nixie tube readouts. They were actual vacuum tubes that glowed and had glowing numbers in them. So it got really, really hot. You could actually take like a sub sandwich, like a Philly cheesesteak wrapped in tinfoil, and put it on top of this thing to heat it up for lunch, which we were known to do. But you had to be very careful that none of the grease from your sandwich dripped into the auto locator. And he put the thing on loop, and it was the 16 track of Layla. So there I was, a brand new baby in the industry, lemon oiling, every little square inch of that recording console with my Q-tip, and Layla was on it, and he said, you can mix it until you're blue in the face. So it was great. It would go back to the top, and I would bring up fader 1. I didn't even know anything about EQ or reverb or sends or anything. I knew nothing other than up was loud on a fader. So I got to sit there and pretend that I was remixing Layla while oiling the console. Boy, was that fun. What's an autolocator? An autolocator is the thing that shows you where you're at. It's like the tape counter that shows you how many seconds and minutes you are into the song, and you can hit, like program in, like the start of the first chorus or the start of the outro, or you can put it on loop and it'll go back, wind the tape back to the top and automatically start to play again. And there's no lemon in lemon oil. Wow, good to know. Yeah, vacuum tubes are still awesome looking. Yeah, I love studios, man. That's, one of my retirement fantasies is to rent like a world-class studio that just feels and sounds great, and call up Shirelli and put together a group of 4 or 5 great players. Excuse me, and just go in there and just record, great players playing great music for like a weekend. I guess I don't have to be retired to do that. Keith LeBrand, I would have peed my pants. Oh, man. Air Studios, there you go. Would kill for a Neve console. Everybody would. It would be justifiable homicide, I have a feeling. Yep, I remember the Tascam 80-8. No, sequencers didn't exist. Remember, I started in the studio, I think it was either 75 or 76. I want to say it was late 75. Sequencers weren't a thing. MIDI wasn't a known thing until probably 80, 81, 82, somewhere around there. Yeah, there's a studio in North Hollywood that Rob Shirelli turned me on to. He was doing a project in there, and he invited me to come down one weekend, I don't know, like 3 years ago. And it's called Sphere. Like the world is a sphere. It used to belong to, what's her name, from Four Non-Blondes, Linda Perry. And then she sold it to some guy, I believe either from Italy or the UK, that had a big deal studio over there, but he wanted to live in LA. So he moved over here and bought the studio. And just an awesome, awesome room with a great live room, an incredible number of amps. Like every amp you could possibly think of was in there. Every drum kit you could possibly think of. They had like just a wall of drum components, another wall of just amps. I want to say that one of the walls had like library books, like a library would, which was actually great acoustically. Let's see, what else could I tell you about it? Every piece of incredible outboard you could think of. I mean, it was literally just like my dream studio. And of course, I walk in, to this day, if I walk into a restaurant, I clap my hands. Wow, my house actually sounds pretty good. Nice, even decay. So yeah, I walked out into the live room and I clapped my hands and I looked back. Shirelli's about 15 feet away from me, just smiling, big smile on his face. He knew I would do it, and he knew that I would smile when I heard how the room sounded. So at the moment, that's my room that I want to go to, and I would just love to have great players pick like 3 great songs and go in and do the songs mostly live, very little overdubbing. Let's see. Il Rosso wants to know, Michael, when you do that, the clap thing, record it. You can make a reverb out of the clap recording. Well, let me learn how to run Logic first. Yeah, we do have hardwood floors. This house came with mahogany floors everywhere, including the closets. Kitchen's got mahogany. It's actual real 1-inch thick mahogany. So really solid floors. Yeah, back there, that room has a vaulted ceiling. It's It's not a huge house, not a small house, kind of an average 4-bedroom Southern California house. Um, anyway, an impulse response for a convolution reverb. There you go. Yeah, I tend to like really rich but short reverbs. That's like my starting point. As a matter of fact, I had things to talk about today, and reverb was somewhere on the list. But let's start out at the top of the list, which is, I don't even remember what they call them, but those isolation things. I was at, where was I the other day? Somebody had one of those things that wraps around a microphone. Aren't they made by SE Electronics or somebody? There's several of them out there. I've seen the little ball thing that goes around the microphone to isolate the mic from the sound of the room. How many of you guys have those things? What are they called? Do they work well? Do you use them all the time? What do you think? I mean, not that I can sing, but I was thinking about buying one. SE, yep. The eyeball thing, yep. Portable mic booths. So, let's talk about the SE one that's like kind of that big. It's like 14 inches wide, maybe. Do they make a big difference? Do you guys like them? Wardrobe is better. And Karen, you're British, if I remember, so you mean a closet, right? An interdimensional vocal chamber. That sounds either kind of like a place you'd torture people. Cass has one. Helps when the room gets noisy. They can work if you use correctly. They don't do much. Interesting. Yeah, that would make sense. If you're using a cardioid mic, it's already kind of killing the stuff off the back anyway. Yeah, and if you're using, let's face it, most people are actually doing vocals in control rooms because studios nowadays, there aren't that many home studios that have a separate control room and a studio room. So I would think that the vast majority of vocals are done in the room. Of course, then you have things like fans running on gear or air conditioning noise, things like that you have to deal with. You can just use supercardioid, but if you really listen critically, when you put mics into supercardioid, they do lose a little frequency response. It's not terrible, and it also depends on the mic. But I went through a period for about 2 years where I was trying to use hypercardioid on just about everything that I could. I did a record with Melanie. I got a brand new pair of roller skates, Melanie, somewhere around 1977, 78. And we did the whole band live in a room that was 25 feet wide and 43 feet deep or something, with like 20-some foot ceilings. And we had an audience of 30 people every night that we brought in, and they would sit on the floor smoking weed, drinking beer, whatever. And Melanie and her band would do a double live album's worth of music from top to bottom every night, and play it all live with vocals and acoustic guitars and electric guitars and a B3 and a grand, and background vocals, all live in the room with an audience of people hanging out on the floor. We had wedge monitors going. A couple people in the band would wear headphones, usually with one ear off. But it was a live performance in studio. We did that for 10 nights in a row, and then just cut the 2-inch and took all the best moments and made complete songs, and then mixed it. Mixing it was really easy. But I used a lot of hypercardioid settings on mics just because, obviously, with that much stuff live in a room, and it was a fairly dead room. It was one of those 70s, mid to late 70s sounding rooms that was fairly dead. Had I think the floor was about 2/3 carpet, 1/3 parquet, wood parquet. It had Pecky cypress or Pecky cedar, I'm not sure which, Pecky something, polycylindrical diffusers on the wall, like every 6 feet. And then between those polycylindrical diffusers, we had like big, double knit fabric over like bass traps in the walls. And then the ceiling was actually a bunch of pyramids that were like 6 feet by 6 feet and about 3.5 feet high. So the room was pretty diffuse, but fairly dead. But still, when you've got that many live players in the room and they were switching off instruments in the middle, somebody could switch from playing an acoustic guitar, finger picked on a verse, then picking up a Strat and doing power chords in the chorus. So had to be prepared for all that. It was a lot of fun. It was very challenging. It was my greatest moment as an engineer. If I can be a little immodest, I pulled it off, and it was awesome. Now, it didn't have a popcorn ceiling. Actually, the ceiling, the pyramids, I believe, were done in the Pecky cypress or Pecky cedar wood as well. Greg says, Michael, take a look at the GIK Acoustics PIB, portable isolation booth. It folds up so it's pretty flexible for vocals, amps, etc. $315. Cool. I was at a NAMM show, probably the 2017 or 2018 NAMM show, and I saw these things that were like ISO chambers for a guitar amp that were made out of like bubble wrap. They were like inflatable, and it was like a box made of inflatable stuff, and you would just drop it over an amp, and I got to say it worked pretty well. Talking Reverb is my favorite. Nice room from Logic Space Designer. Oh, good to know. I'm excited about that. So yeah, okay. Now I've asked you about the ISO things. How many of you are using them? Blah blah blah. What is your favorite type of reverb? I'm curious to know. I generally, just as a default thing, in my room in Fort Lauderdale, the one where I did the Melanie record and like the Cheap Trick stuff and Neil Young, we had 2 live chambers, actual real live chambers that sounded great. They were very long but super rich, and we would control them by throwing moving blankets on the floor and moving them around and hoisting the microphone up toward the ceiling. It was basically the same dimensions as an elevator shaft, 2 of them side by side, with acoustic doors between them, isolation doors between them, so you could have the door shut and have them be totally discreet, or you could open the doors to varying degrees so that you got some cross bleed between the 2 rooms. And we had a Bose home stereo speaker on about a 3-foot stand in the middle of the room, and an Electro Voice mic that was suspended from a pulley up by the ceiling, and you would bring the mic closer or further depending how much direct sound you wanted versus what was bouncing around the room. But they were somewhat limited. They sounded great, but they were somewhat limited as to what you could do with them. And then I got a Lexicon 224, the original Lexicon 224, the white one with the black sides on it, not the slicker, fancier, more high-tech looking one, but the very original one. And I remember liking the short plate sound on that. And I would set it like to 1.5 to 2 seconds of plate. And that was a great like starter reverb. If you just needed a reverb that you could set up on a bus, and just like when you're laying down tracks and the vocalist wanted to hear some reverb, or you wanted to throw a little reverb on the drums for everybody's headphones or guitar, it kind of worked on everything. So that was like my default reverb. And then when I would mix, I would use a combination generally of those 2 things. I didn't like, it's not that the Lexicon 224 had bad room sounds or hall sounds. I just personally didn't like that sound. I didn't like something that sounded like it was done in a 2,000 seat theater. If I were doing chamber music or orchestral stuff, it would have been great for that. But for typical rock or pop stuff that I did most of the time, I didn't love the hall program or the rooms. So I tended to use the plate. They had another setting called Rich Chamber, which frankly kind of sounded like what I already had. I do remember when I was mixing that Melanie record that our gear purveyor dropped off the EMT 250. We called it R2D2. It was about 2.5 to 3 feet tall. It it looked like a portable refrigerator or something. It was about 8 or 10 inches deep by about, 20 inches wide. Stood about 2.5 to 3 feet tall, and it had levers on the top, kind of more or less. It had like 4 levers and about 6 buttons. That thing sounded great. I think that thing ended up getting used on a lot of the Bee Gees hits from back then. So I remember liking that thing a lot, but it was a lot of money. I want to say it was like $20,000 or $25,000, and that was in the '70s, so pretty expensive. And nowadays, there's just so much great reverb that comes like with your DAW. Kip Johnson, I got and liked the TC Electronic DVI 250 and the Universal EMT 250 plugin. Yeah, I'd love to hear that EMT 250 plugin. It wasn't the most versatile reverb, but it sounded really, really good. I remember the circuit boards in there. It had these massive chips on massive boards. If you pulled the boards out, they were like, this big with these big ass chips on them. EMT 140 plate and EMT 250. Yeah, you can't go wrong with that stuff. I've heard people have told me about Reverb in Logic. I really need to force myself to sit down and use Logic more, because it sounds like there's so much amazing stuff in there. John Pearson, who's not here tonight in the chat room that I'm aware of, he always says that the drums in Logic are just incredible. Valhalla. That's another name that comes up all the time. Very cheap, but very good. Like that. Wow. It's amazing how many choices are out there. I know I'm just going to get lost in choices. The IK Multimedia Sunset Sound plugin. Ooh. Reverb again. Do a show where I play around with Logic Pro and we'll coach you. Yeah, that's what I need, like 50 coaches. Oh, man. Dan Weber's getting into sidechaining lately. Back in my day, sidechaining was basically used like when you wanted to do a voiceover in a commercial, and you'd use the sidechain to duck stuff. It wasn't used that much in an artistic way. It was used more in a utilitarian way. God, so many great choices. I'm reading the chat, just looking at all this stuff. Michael Bruce Miller made me chuckle. His work here is done. Oh, man. Let's see. What else did I want to talk about today? Wow, I can't believe we've only got 16 minutes left. I do want to mention that I'm planning to do on Monday's show. We are going to do, tomorrow I'm doing the new member Zoom thing. And that's only for people who joined in the month of December. If you are one of those people, you'll get an email from us telling you how to do that, how to get into it. And then Thursday, we'll be back for another Quarantini happy hour. I would really appreciate it after today's show if you guys could go into the comments and give me some ideas what we can talk about. I've gotten a little bit out of my rhythm on the Quarantini happy hours lately because the holidays, I'm just like out of practice and the ideas haven't been flowing. So if you guys would be so kind after the show, go into the comments and drop some ideas what we can talk about on Thursday's show. And then for Monday's regular Taxi TV, we're going to do the Taxi Top 10. I'm going to try and do that once a month. I think it's good for people to hear what your other members are doing. And by the way, just so you know, if you've never heard me say this before, the top 10 is not like these are the 10 best songs out of everything we heard in the month of December. It's just stuff that kind of bubbles up on the radar of the A&R staff, not the screeners so much. The screeners, when they hear something that they really like, it's the only time that like their personal taste comes into play. If they're screening something for a listing, they're using that part of their brain where is it answering what the listing is asking for, and is it over the quality bar. So if it meets those criteria, then they will forward it. But sometimes they hear stuff that doesn't, it's not right for the listing, but they really like it. It's really cool, or there's something about it. Could be any genre. It could be a weird little piece of music, or it could be a straight up pop tune, whatever. They will tag it and let the regular, A&R staff, not the other screeners, but let the A&R staff at Taxi know this is cool. You guys should hear it and check it out. So Tom and Eric and Angela, all the people on the A&R staff, will actually collect that stuff and then go through it and pick the top 10. So they don't pick it because it's the best. They just pick it because they like it. It's cool. And sometimes maybe something gets picked because it's a genre that hasn't made it into the top 10 for a while. Other times it could just be a vocal performance that really touches them. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's like legit a top 10. It's just like the 10 most interesting things they heard. So I want to play that stuff for you on Monday. I'm a little curious. I haven't heard it myself yet. The new stuff just went up on January 1st. How cool is that? Zoom session for new members. Nice. Yeah, well, I'll let you know on Thursday how nice it was, Keith, because we've never done one before. But we're always writing emails that, automatically get sent out when you join Taxi. You get an email, hey, the best way to take advantage of your membership. People don't read. They just don't read. But I look at you guys who come to the happy hours and come to Taxi TV, and I'm always hearing from people. I learned so much. Well, I want to give these new members, like all the stuff that you guys have learned over time, I want to turn them on to those things. Like, if you get something forwarded, don't sit there looking at your email all day long, every day, waiting for a library or a record label to reach out and say, just got your stuff from Taxi 5 minutes ago, I want to sign you. These are all common things that all new members, whether they're mistakes or misconceptions or shortcuts they should know about. So I'm going to try and do all that in an hour on a Zoom. Trying to think of other kinds of stuff. Oh, if you've got a bunch of music that, has been sitting on a shelf for the last 5 years, don't pitch it every listing that comes out, because you'll be trying to put a square peg in a round hole and shoehorning it. There may be something about it that works, but not enough things are going to work. You're better off writing to the listings, and people say, oh, well, I can't do that. I can't crank out music that fast, and I have to wait for the muse to come. So kind of all those new member misconceptions, fallacies, and questions I'm going to try and answer in an hour. Can I talk about copywriting for cues on Thursday? When should we copyright? Do we need to copyright cues? I can answer that for you right now. I can't give you legal advice. And I can't tell you that you shouldn't copyright something, because I don't want to be held responsible for that 1 in a million times where somebody didn't copyright something and then they feel that somebody ripped them off. and I'm to blame for that. I will tell you that for instrumental cues, that anecdotally I've heard from virtually every successful member that they don't bother copywriting instrumental cues. They think of them as kind of, there's that word again, disposable. Why would you bother copywriting? This is their theory. Why would I bother copywriting a dramedy cue when I'm going to write 10 more dramedy cues in the next 30 days anyway? And frankly, most of those will be better than the one I just finished, just because I'll be more experienced. And frankly, libraries, if you've already copyrighted it, then a library would have to transfer the copyright, when they pick up the publisher share. So from those of you who are in the chat room right now, we've got 10 minutes left. Do you guys bother copywriting instrumental cues, or is what I said kind of typical of what most members? You can register several pieces as a collection. It's cost effective, no question about it. But then when it gets picked up by a library, you got to transfer the copyright. Il Raso, I do not copyright. Andre, no copywriting cues. Nope. Yeah, everybody's agreeing with what I just said, and I've learned that from our members. Now, on the other hand, if you're somebody who's pitching songs to major label artists, I would copyright the stuff. Songs, I would copyright. Instrumental cues that you're going to do a lot of, and they are, I hate to say disposable. That's not really a good choice of words, but you know what I'm trying to say. There you go. Keith LeBrand sums it up nicely. Nope, by the time it's copyrighted, it's out the door, and I've made tons more. There you go. And frankly, you know what? Look, copyright, registering a copyright, because it's copyrighted the minute you create it or you put it down on one form of media or another. It's technically copyrighted, and you own 100% of that copyright. It's registering the copyright that makes it, that's what you need to have it stand up in court should there be a copyright issue that requires you to go to court, which very few would. Really, who is going to try and steal a 90-second dramedy cue? Plus, there are going to be so many other dramedy cues out there. They're probably going to have pizzicato strings and some form of malleted instrument, and they're going to sound cheeky and mischievous. There are going to be so many similarities because it's a thing, it's a genre, it's a style, and it doesn't have lyrics. So, lyrics can set songs apart. When you're talking instrumental cues in particular genre, there could be a lot of similarities. Obviously, melody is the one area that you would hope somebody doesn't steal from you. But what are they going to do? They're going to steal, your dramedy cue. It's not like a dramedy cue is going to make you $5,000, $10,000, $100,000. It's going to be a few bucks here, a few bucks there. That adds up over time. But yeah, I've never heard of anybody. My own personal experience, I've not heard once in 28 years, going into our 29th year of Taxi, I've never heard of anybody going, oh, somebody stole my dramedy cue or any particular kind of music library instrumental cue. That's right. Anyone who can make a hit happen would not steal a song. And if someone steals your song, makes it a hit, you have a good case to make a lot of money from it. Yeah, if you registered the copyright. But the same would probably not be the case for an instrumental cue. Could they get inspired by, a particular little bit of ear candy that they heard in your instrumental cue and it ends up being ear candy in their song? Probably. Are you going to go to court over that? And yeah, I don't know. I don't want to give out legal advice. Stu, always feel comfortable in the Quarantini happy hours taxi TV on the taxi forum at forums with an s.taxi.com. You will find it to be the friendliest, most generous, helpful, no BS community of other musicians. Not like other places I've seen on the internet where it's like people look down their nose at you. They love to tear each other's music apart. These people are freakishly generous and kind. And it's always been that way. So you never, ever have to feel like a newbie asking dumb questions, because everybody in this room that's more experienced, has been around longer, they too have asked a dumb question. And there is really no such thing as a dumb question, because you're actually quite smart for asking it, and brave to ask it, you know. Nobody will ever turn their nose up at you here, at least not for that reason. What do I think about Lindsey Buckingham selling off his musical catalog? Is this a symptom of the streaming disease? You know, I think it's more a matter of age. I don't think he may have been married. I don't think he's got any kids, but you know, for like Bob Dylan sold his catalog, maybe they just want to have all the money in a bank account. Not that Bob Dylan necessarily or Lindsey Buckingham needed more money, but if you're leaving your catalog to your heirs, especially somebody, I don't believe Lindsey has any kids. I could be wrong about that, but would you want to leave your catalog to your heirs? They wouldn't know what to do with it. They would pay a bunch of lawyers and other people, you know, brokers and experts that would probably rip them off anyway and give them bad advice and charge them an arm and a leg and try and insert themselves somehow, into getting a percentage of it. Yeah, I think it's just time to cash out. It's like, here you go, you know, here's a couple $100 million, kids, splitting it three ways among the three of you. Have a nice day, rather than leaving them with an intellectual property situation that would probably be above their pay grade. Just an opinion on my part. Peter Rahill, rabbits leave their catalogs to their hairs. That's great advice, Simon says. Asking for help is not wrong. Not asking is. Yep. I don't think Lindsey Buckingham has to worry about money. Although, you know, he hasn't been touring. He's not been in the band now for a few years. The band hasn't toured now for a year or so. Lindsey has 3 kids. Wow, I had no idea. Well, there you go. So that would be my motivation. You know, if I owned a few $100 million worth of intellectual property, as in a catalog of songs, I would want to cash out and leave the kids with the money. So I could totally ruin their lives. Wow, 2 minutes left. Oh, I went through all my little questions on my piece of paper. That's good. Yeah, no squirrels today. You know, since the weather's gotten colder, it's probably like 50 degrees outside right now. It's a little chilly. I just noticed that right before I went on the air. I went outside, just walked around the backyard for a minute just to enjoy a little sunshine before I came in. And I noticed the little lizards that run all over, they haven't been around. I've only had one gopher sighting in the last few days. They seem to have calmed down. The squirrels have been all but non-existent now for 2 or 3 weeks. So, yeah, it's a little chilly. Let's see. What time is it? I mean, what's the temperature right now? Oh, it's 64 degrees. Well, it's a veritable cold wave out there. Squirrels are on COVID lockdown. There you go. I'd like to give a couple of the squirrels in our backyard COVID. Oh, don't give me any grief, you animal lovers. I'll tell you, the squirrels love nothing more than getting a hold of the cushions on our lawn furniture and shredding them to rip the stuffing out and build their nests. And this is that time of year. Where's my parka? It's right behind me in the closet. The days are getting longer. Yes, thank goodness for that, huh? No kidding. All right, well, it looks like our time is about up. We're in the last minute. Lindsay is a monster finger picker. Yeah, if you haven't read Ken Calais' books about, what was the name of it? Making Rumors, and I forget the name of the follow-up book, but I've read them both. Incredibly good books. First of all, Ken's a really smart, really nice guy. He and I definitely have become friends since meeting prior to the road rally and at the road rally on stage. And I mean, he called me when the lockdown started. Like 3 days into it, he just called up one day and said, "Hey man, it's Ken, just checking in on you. You okay? Just making sure everything's cool." It might have been because we were together about a week before at his studio. Maybe he wanted to see if I had COVID yet. I don't know. Anyway, I've really grown very fond of him and like him a lot. He's actually rebuilding the record plant Sausalito where they did much of Rumors. And turning it into like a working museum studio. And he's offered to take me up there. He's been going up there even during COVID. Apparently they're like a 6 or 8 seat airplane that flies out of Burbank Airport up there. And you don't charter the whole plane. You buy a seat. It's about the same as flying coach on a regular plane. So it's actually very inexpensive. And he said oftentimes he gets on there and he's the only person on there. And if there is another person, you just wear a mask. Anyway, so he said, "Come on up with me. I'll give you a call. Take a ride up there." I think I'll wait till COVID is over. But I can't wait to go up there and see that place, man. I was in it 35, 38 years ago, and he said they're making it look like it looked back in the day. I can't wait. Anyway, thank you all for joining me today. Don't forget to drop some comments about ideas for Thursday's show. Don't forget to give us a like if you enjoyed today's show. Don't forget to hit that red subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already. And I will see you guys on Thursday, right here, 4 o'clock, same time, same station. Bye-bye.